Zohran Mamdani has been everywhere. He's not only continued the video content strategy that he had started trying to get elected, of like creating that content, like bite-sized videos of like what they're doing, what they're working on, during that day. I've seen videos related to public bathrooms opening, pre-kindergarten classes opening, one of like the sanitation department, another one about like the snowplows. It's really showing me that like he knows that the video strategy is like is very effective and it's working. Much like we were talking about earlier with Substack, like they know that like video is like the way to go because that's how people are ingesting content these days. Um, it's also showing to me that like he is using his popularity to show what's possible when government actually does the work that they say they're going to do, right? Like all these initiatives are things that he's basically rolled out since he started on January 1st, which is kind of crazy to think about that like there's all this work that's been done. But it also goes back to the process that he set up with the video content, right? Where it's like the turnaround is super quick. It doesn't take weeks of like, filming and like editing. It's like, no, we got to get this out as quickly as possible so that people know what's happening now and people can point to the things that we're actually doing and that we're actually affecting. And it's not just video, right? Like he's showing up on TV, he's showing up on radio stations, right? He showed up on the Weather Channel, Hot 97, New York 1, 1010 WINS. And then last night he showed up on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon to like do a 1 minute like joke. And he got like a standing ovation from the crowd for like a minute, right? And it's showing that like he's pretty much welcome everywhere. I mean, I tweeted today, like, so does he just have an open invitation to all these things? Or is his PR people like going out there and being like, hey, Mamdani would like to talk about this? Like, I would just love to know the process of like what the comms team is like doing to ensure that he's kind of like blitzing all these like places. And it's not just one side or the other, right? Like I saw him on Fox News talking about how he had a conversation with Trump about ICE and how he's, thinks that it's not the right strategy. And he's speaking out against them being in Minneapolis and everything that's like happening there. He even mentioned that he had been texting Trump, right? Like these are all signals that show that like he's involved and he's doing the work. And it's showing a, stark difference from like the previous administration of Eric Adams, who like, would sometimes do press conferences for like weird stuff, right? Like the one I remember is the one for the trash cans for like, to combat the rats or whatever. And it's showing that he's out there and understands that talking about like what the work that he's actually doing is more important than just, silently doing the work, which is kind of a change in the way that like, politicians are, really going out there. So this is crisis comms as brand building. He's questioning we're seeing a lot of his opponents questioning why he's doing all this like video stuff. I think because it's showing that he is competent and he does know what he's doing, much to their chagrin, because they don't want him to be an effective mayor, and they don't want his policies to be popular. I think that's another thing that he knows that like he's doing here. He's going with a lot of the popular like things that people want. I'm sure they have polling showing what is being done with like people's tax dollars, showing how effective it can be, and then making it more popular by explaining what the benefits are to all the programs that are being, created or that are running as they should be, right? I saw a lot of people come onto like Twitter to talk about the snow plowing situation where it's like it had never been done as quickly or as effectively as it had been with Mamdani. And I had, I saw people questioning like, wait, what were previous administrations doing? Because like it never happened this quickly. He also was out there, shoveling snow himself. And like I saw, he showed up on camera without a hat. And so, people were like, oh no, why aren't you wearing a hat? My mom thinks that he's going to get sick because he's not wearing a hat. So it's all these like funny things that he's out there kind of, doing and showing his personality as like the brand. And I think it's doubly effective because it's showing how popular the actual policies that he wants to pass are. Did you
Yeah.
see all this? You live in New York, right?
Yeah. Very much so. He was in my neighborhood shoveling snow. I was
Oh,
sad to miss him.
amazing.
Um, yeah, I think you, on some level, like, I mean, you nailed a lot of the things. The one that resonated with me the most, it's funny because you mentioned the pit just a few seconds ago. When people are talking about the pit, they use this phrase competency porn, where it's just like,
Mhm, mhm,
it's so satisfying to see people do something they're good at, kind of
mhm,
thing. And I think a lot of what he's done is not, I mean, if he's changed things, that's nice and good. Lord knows we need it. But I think on some level, it's a little bit of shining a light of like, there's just such a sense that politicians don't do anything and politics don't get
mhm,
anything done. And it's just a nice reminder of like, there is a vast infrastructure of bureaucracy. And I mean that in the good way,
mhm,
that goes on seamlessly on a daily basis to allow us to live the lives that we live. And I think a big part of what Mondani's been doing has just been sort of turning the camera on that and saying, like, look at all the sanitation workers that we have. Look at all the salt that we've done. Look at
mhm,
all the preparations that we've put into place. Probably better than has been the case historically, that would be, but even if nothing else, even if this is just how things work as the status quo, I think showcasing the competency of the state, the city
mhm,
government in this instance is really refreshing and pride instilling. Like, you get some sense of
mhm,
like, patriotism, at least on a local level. You're like,
mhm,
man, we have experts at the top of
mhm,
the organization and they're doing a good job running things. And man, that's a nice feeling in politics. And to your point, under Eric Adams, at least he was, like, goofy, but you never really got the sense that he was getting much done.
mm.
And then, of course, nationally, you don't get the sense that, Trump's getting stuff done. It's maybe not stuff that you want, but,
Right.
I wouldn't call it competency, but, things are happening.
Mhm,
But anyway, so that's really a valuable element, and you have, like, that as a trust signal. I think for a lot of people, it's like when you're scared of something, oftentimes you just need to get to know it better. I think that's a really sentient, sort of thought as it pertains to Mamdani. Like, democratic socialist. He's
right.
not born in America. His mom's a filmmaker. It's all these like,
Mhm.
his dad's a
He's
professor. Like,
rich.
all these like, yeah, all these like,
His wife is even richer, you know?
yeah, these things are like you can see on paper and might put off like some heartland folks who look at this combination of adjectives and don't really see themselves in it.
Mhm,
And then you see who he is on camera and the work that he's doing. He's rolling up his sleeves. It's not only heartening, obviously, sort of as a resident, but I think to your point, from a communication strategy, he absolutely used this opportunity, never let a crisis go.
mhm,
Wasted kind of thing. He absolutely used this snowstorm to demonstrate his competency, to
mhm,
showcase his communication strategy, and not to be too woo about it, but to get his tenure sort of started on the right foot. You know
mhm,
what I mean? The snowstorm didn't end up being catastrophic. Who knows? Maybe that's because we prepared for it so well. Probably not. Um,
mhm.
but I think he at least was over prepared, and that's kind of what you. I mean, that's just been his sentiment this whole time. Like, he's enthusiastic, he's plucky, he's quick. And I think you see that in a leadership capacity, this being sort of his first real test, and you feel like you're in good hands. So it's been impressive to see, and Lord knows it pops up on my feed all the time. I had friends texting me being like, about the snowstorm who don't live here, and they're like, "What's Mamdani doing?" And I sent him a link to one of the videos. I said, "Making IG videos, per usual." It goes back to this thing of like every great politician is just a master at whatever new technology there is. It's like Trump was the Twitter president and Obama's the Facebook president, and you go back
Mhm,
to JFK was the TV president, and all those kinds of things. I think Mamdani's the vertical video president, vertical video
mhm.
mayor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, he
so
cannot be president,
yeah,
given the
yeah.
fact that he wasn't born here. But yeah, I think one other thing I wanna call out here is that, um, everyone is expecting him to fail. So he's using that attention to turn it back on city government, city employees that have been competent this whole time, um, and using that to show how government can actually do stuff for people. He's been doing that by over communicating, over preparing. It does show that he's seeing what previous administrations have failed on. As you were talking about this, I used to live in New York, and I remember at the time De Blasio was our mayor, and there was a, a snowstorm. It always seems as they're never as bad as they say they're going to be, right? But the point is they're trying to get you to stay home in order to, deter you from having anything catastrophic happen. But the way that he kind of approached it was more just like, stay home. I feel like Mamdani's message was like, as a collective, let's all stay home. Let's chill at home. Let's, celebrate. Speaking of Heated Rivalry, he told people to stay home and watch Heated Rivalry, or to like, get the book from the library. And the library saw like, I think it was a 566% jump in people checking the book out because they wanted to read it. So it's showing that like, it's not just like, the snowplow getting attention, but it's also the New York Public Library system that's getting attention, telling you to like rent out the book, and like read it, stay home, chill. Like, and so he's doing it in such a like fun way that like, I saw people talking about this saying like that earnest millennial shit that like, is so popular with them. And it's like, okay, but it like works, people want to know that like it's more of a happy thing and it's not like, there's a snowstorm coming and like, like dire, 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 like we have so much of that happening with everything else happening in the country that if it like you can make a snowstorm that we're all preparing for, um, something that you can find joy in, then let's opt for that, So that's one of my, lessons to be learned here is like, if you can make something positive, like speak to the positives of it. I talked about this recently in terms of, watching Monsters Inc. and the realization that like marketing has a like scare floor problem, which is like we think that scaring people or making them angry is the way that's going to get us attention through like rage baiting. Maybe we start thinking about making them laugh, which is like the moral of the story for Monsters Inc., right? Is like getting them laugh, getting them to be joyful and like have positive interactions with you gives you more energy. Us all more energy, but then you as a company more energy because you're feeding off of the good vibes of the people that you're bringing in and not all the negative stuff that gets created when you rage bait them into paying attention to you.